We had a great conversation today on Reinvent Hollywood about the business. When will Hollywood focus on community building was the undercurrent, I think, of today's episode on the business. Hollywood, in particular, hasn't focused on the building of community first and foremost, and it still is in this antiquated mode of delivering their products, movies, and asking people to come, instead of taking movies directly to the place that audiences are gathered. When will the rise of the digital natives, the generation that's had access to everything, the millennials, coincide with community building and the reduction of the barriers of entry to start to build a new entertainment economy where things may not be so predicated on the necessity for a theatrical release?
In the near future, I don't even think theatrical is going to be the first window. It may be the third or fourth window. I think it's all on the verge of being irrelevant in discussing the future of distribution.
I think that we have been predicting the demise of theatrical experience for at least 10 years. Probably closer to 15 if you're a true futurist. It's not so simple as that. The problem is that there's this array of choices and no single one is winning out and no single one is losing. So it turns out that it takes a whole lot to kill something. What you do is wound it, and so everybody's kind of limping along. That's where we're at.
Well, I'm not suggesting that theatrical exhibition goes away. I just say that it ceases to be the first and main a channel of distribution.
We still don't have an industry that says, I'm going to deliver my work to where the community is always already gathered. We still don't have an industry that has set up a metric that says, this will allow me to get the film greenlit because I recognize there's a community that's here.
And I think that's been the incredible power that Netflix has brought to the table in its programming choices, is that it is using its data and its reader base, its subscriber base, to make decisions about what kinds of content it wants to make.
I think that's the point, is there are these brands that can emerge that create a true direct-to-consumer relationship. Sharon, you mentioned Netflix. That's exactly right. They own their user. Every user is a subscriber to Netflix. And the genius of Netflix is whatever they're watching, they're aggressively mining that behavior and seeing what they watch, how long they watch it, what leads them from this content to that content, so they can make recommendations that enable discovery and just better lifting up of the right content to the right user.
They're actually hostile to the idea, and this is kind of confounding, that they have an audience per se. They take it as an article of faith that studios don't have audiences, only films have audiences, and that they're simply spinning their wheels to try to collect and scrutinize the kind of data you're talking about, because they're only concerned about how a particular film attracts an audience or doesn't.
And speaking as a former studio executive at Universal, that was my experience. Executives and the studios are sort of developing projects on a project-by-project basis with no thought whatsoever to the idea of the studio's audience writ large. I can't think of the last time someone outside of the industry was even aware that a film was a Paramount film or a Universal film, and that altered their decision about what film to go see on a Friday or Saturday night.
What will it look like to adapt to this world of abundance? What will it look like to start to target these audiences? Where can we learn from mistakes in other fields?
Everything else in our lives, we're being trained to get things on demand, or at least be able to order things immediately, except in the film business. Everything else, it's as soon as you want it, you can generally get it, or you can order it and it comes to you relatively quickly, except for film.
What we've seen happen that's so exciting is this fusion of these worlds. 10 years ago, we were talking about convergence, and now with the proliferation of video-enabled devices, and the collision of video, the social web, and the mobile web, the mixing of these worlds, the lack of preciousness around content on a platform like YouTube is making it possible for content creators to start experimenting a little bit more again, to start testing ideas and testing characters, testing scenes, and building on those, finding what works for them, then using social media to get an audience.
I have a movie out right now that's doing Ultra VOD, which is Very Good Girls, and it's very interesting to see how when the movie's put out there, the people who want to see it will gravitate towards it and see it at a premium, even though in 2 weeks it might be in a theater near them or whatever it is. And I think that that's still like part of the problem in trying to take what is exciting to people about social media and being engaged and turning it into feature films that take a year or 2 years to get out, and then you still can't control how that person's going to actually be able to see that movie.
The way Hollywood has adapted is to make sure that there are barriers of entry, that there is scarcity. You can make a movie with an iPhone for about $150, but you can't make Spider-Man 11 with an iPhone. And they have ensured their place in the market, especially internationally, with the kind of big budget spectaculars that puts them in competition with nobody else but other Hollywood studios.
It's funny to me that the industry is just catching on to the extent to which the social media and talent developing audiences, has been helpful. Because it's been happening in minority communities for years now. My favorite example of this recently is Kevin Hart. You have the industry trades covering him as an overnight success story, but he's been on Twitter and Facebook and Vine and Instagram and pretty much anywhere where anyone will listen to him, he's been building an audience. And so when his movies came out and far, far exceeded the industry's expectations, it wasn't because it was a surprise to anybody who'd been paying attention. It was because the industry's expectations were deeply, deeply flawed.
When you look at a TV show like Community, or when you look at a lot of shows that we developed for the web, in my days at Machinima, we looked at what is happening on YouTube, what content our audience is engaging in. And so the ability to find maybe smaller audiences, but much more loyal, engaged, and passionate audiences will become critical.
One of the other big changes afoot is how the international box office, now accounts for so much of what movies get made, what gets financed, what gets into the theaters.
As the territorial international box office continues to grow, the amount of resources a Korean filmmaker may have at their disposal to make a movie can also continue to grow. We're also seeing, in many countries, different types of whether it's rebates or whether it's soft money, government money, that will also continue to enhance the budget. We're not just really making American movies, we're making movies from all over the world. So how can we continue to take advantage of whether it's local territory growth or creative financial ways to give filmmakers the tools they need to make the films as special as we'd like them to be?
The kingmakers are gone. The people, with the possible exception of Walmart or something, and Hollywood, who make decisions about what shall live and what shall die. Now we have the means and the consumer interest in sort of democratization of what is good. And instead of distribution decisions being imposed on us by studio executives and distributors and theatrical venues, when will the marketplace transform itself to match how people actually behave?
Change doesn't usually come from within the industry, it comes outside the industry. And in terms of really where I look at it, I could care less if someone watches my movie in a movie theater, on their iPad, on their phone. As long as they watch it, they pay for it, and they're enjoying it, so they'll want to come back and see another movie.